This is the real X-Files, not the fake ones.
It's not a satellite, it's not a meteor.
And so when people say, well, are there any cases that absolutely solidly prove what these objects are and how they operate? I said, oh, absolutely. Because this object would appear, at one point in the sky and teleport instantly 150 miles away on the other side of the aircraft. This whistleblower from the FAA, he came forward, and then with him, he brought the original radar tapes. And so the general public or members of the Canadian government or the US government or whoever can look at it and finally see the evidence.
The subject of unidentified flying objects, UFOs, and extraterrestrial encounters has fascinated humanity for decades, straddling the fine line between science fiction and potential reality. While the popular narrative often dismisses these phenomena as fantasy or conspiracy, a growing body of evidence, supported by credible reports, whistleblower testimonies, and declassified documents, suggests that there is far more to these encounters than meets the eye. This exploration seeks to delve into these complex topics with an emphasis on solid facts and evidence, presenting what some consider to be the real X-Files. The 1947 Roswell Incident is perhaps the most famous UFO case in history. It involves the crash of an unidentified object near Roswell, New Mexico, which the U.S. military initially described as a flying disc, before quickly retracting the statement and claiming it was a weather balloon. This incident has since become the cornerstone of UFO lore, sparking countless investigations and conspiracy theories. However, evidence has surfaced that suggests the U.S. government's involvement with extraterrestrial phenomena predates Roswell by several decades. A photograph, reportedly taken in the 1920s and discovered more recently, shows what appears to be an extraterrestrial being dissected by government and military personnel. Experts who analyzed the photograph confirmed the authenticity of the equipment and setting, dating it to between 1922 and 1929. This evidence suggests that extraterrestrial encounters and recoveries have been occurring for much longer than the public has been led to believe. This photograph, along with numerous testimonies from individuals involved in top-secret government projects, indicates a systematic effort to conceal the truth about extraterrestrial visitations and technological recoveries.
It must have been about 3 years ago now. A woman surfaced whose grandmother had worked on the atomic bomb, was then moved to Roswell when that event happened. And the grandmother passed away, and they were going through some old books in her attic, and out falls a photograph. But it's from the 1920s, not 40s, of an extraterrestrial being dissected on a slab with some doctors and looks like some intelligence or government people in the back of the room. That was one of the photos I put in the Trump and Pence briefing document. But now it's in the archive and you can see it. Now it has some damage to it. What we think it was a photograph that a friend of this woman took when they brought in an archive to comparative analysis of the bodies from a prior incident all the way back to the 20s. We've had the top medical historian in the world in New York prove that the equipment, the gloves, everything was from between 1922 and 29. But so we're talking 20 years before Roswell. And so there have been retrievals and involvement with this for at least 100 years.
The implications are profound, suggesting that the government has had knowledge of and possibly interactions with extraterrestrial beings for nearly a century. This raises significant questions about the extent of this knowledge and its potential impact on technological advancements and global security. One of the most compelling UFO cases is the Japan Airlines incident from the 1980s. On November 17, 1986, Captain Kenju Terauchi, an experienced pilot, was flying a Boeing 747 cargo flight from Paris to Tokyo when he and his crew encountered a massive, unidentified object over Alaska. This object, described as being walnut-shaped and approximately the size of an aircraft carrier, exhibited extraordinary maneuverability. According to Captain Terauchi's account, the object demonstrated capabilities far beyond known human technology, such as the ability to appear and disappear instantaneously and to travel at speeds that defy conventional physics. What makes this case particularly significant is the corroboration from multiple radar systems, both civilian and military, which track the object's movements. John Callahan, a former Federal Aviation Administration official, later came forward as a whistleblower, bringing with him radar data, cockpit voice recordings, and other crucial evidence that he managed to retain despite attempts by the CIA to confiscate it. This material, now part of an extensive archive, provides solid proof of the encounter, challenging the long-held narrative that UFOs are mere figments of imagination or misidentified natural phenomena. The Japan Airlines incident is one of the few cases where the evidence is so compelling that it has forced even skeptics to reconsider their positions.
We had someone who disclosed, a whistleblower, who did provide information on the big Japan Airlines case that happened in the 80s. This thing that was flying from Paris to Tokyo, 747, Japan Airlines. And the captain, the flight crew saw this massive, and you see the illustration in there of this object, and the pilot drew it, and then we had it professionally recreated. And we have the pilot's account, and we have also the documents of the radar tracking of it from military radar, but then we have the civilian radar material and a top secret whistleblower from the FAA, John Callahan. And John Callahan actually took, when he retired, the CIA tried to confiscate it, but John Callahan took the original radar tracks and all the digital data of that and gave it to us. And that's in the archive. The original is in the archive. And so when people say, where's the hard evidence? I say, go to this archive. I'm telling you, it's more than the US Congress and the president will ever see. Now, that case, you have professional pilots, military pilots, government documents, the original FAA tape, and everything about it. And so when people say, well, are there any cases that absolutely solidly prove what these objects are and how they operate? I said, oh, absolutely. Because this object would appear, at one point in the sky and teleport instantly 150 miles away on the other side of the aircraft, zipping around like this. And it was massive. It was the size of a aircraft carrier, but it looked like a walnut. It almost looked like a walnut, and huge. So, that was in the 1980s. But we ended up, that case did get known in the public some, but then the big breakthrough was having this whistleblower from the FAA. He was the director of accidents and investigations for the entire FAA in the United States. And he came forward, and then with him, he brought the original radar tapes and gave them to us. So this is the kind of material in the archive. We have digitized and spent a lot of time getting all this material in this archive so the general public or members of the Canadian government or the US government or whoever can look at it and finally see the evidence. Because most people are saying, where's the evidence? Well, it's sitting in there. People are mixing together multiple phenomena, plural, as one thing. And there are three major categories being thrown together. There is the extraterrestrial, which means civilizations from another planet around another star system who have been able to bend space-time and travel through space and have visited the Earth. That's one category. The second, which is bigger for cases, are man-made UFOs or UAPs that are built by Northrop and Grumman, Lockheed Skunk Works, Raytheon, and other contractors based on studying the physics and the science of these objects that are both early experiments by humans, but the reverse engineering of the extraterrestrial. Those came together in the 40s and 50s, and voila, October 1954, we have a source who was in the Naval Research Labs, who was in the vault and saw the document stating that was the date we mastered, quote unquote, gravity control. We can control for gravity waves and lift. So 1954 to now is 70 years. So what I tell people is that when you see these objects, you have to ask, is that ET or is it man-made masquerading in a deceptive way as ET? And then there's a third category, which is more complex. And this gets into strange phenomenon that people call extraterrestrial, but it's actually extra-dimensional. It's entities and things from another dimension, but not from another star system. And because anything going faster than the speed of light that's extraterrestrial has certain qualities of an extra-dimensional or interdimensional being, they get mixed up. So, but I always point out, one of my favorite quotes when I was at the Vatican with Monsignor Balducci, who was a senior theologian to Pope John Paul. He says, yeah, well, neither demons nor angels need flying saucers. And he was saying that in a very simple way, is to say there are all kinds of people deliberately, now this is deliberate, conflating all kinds of phenomena, plural, with it being extraterrestrial or alien, when it isn't. You know, as a doctor and a scientist, I look at this lack of discernment as dangerous, because it'd be like if you're making a policy decision on this, or you're someone in the public listening to your show and you're trying to make sense of all this. If somebody is out there deliberately mislabeling and miscalling, identifying things, then people are going to be hopelessly lost in this obfuscation and confusion. So what I tell people, we have to bring clarity and discernment. So you have to understand there are three major categories of observable phenomena that are quite separate, but there's overlaps. Because if you have reverse engineered an extraterrestrial vehicle and you keep refining that reverse engineering from the 40s to now, 70, 80 years, you're going to get something that looks very close to a real ET craft, right? So you could trick people. But also, if you understand these other dimensions, you can create electromagnetic technologies to create false extra-dimensional phenomena like the Skinwalker Ranch is now. If you're one of these people behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz, doing all these deceptions to confuse the public, it's easy to do because the public doesn't have the information to discern 1 from 2 from 3, or 4, 5, and 6 for that matter.
The existence of man-made UFOs, developed through reverse engineering of extraterrestrial technology, is another critical aspect of the real X-Files. According to numerous whistleblowers from within the military-industrial complex, major defense contractors like Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Skunk Works, and Boeing have been involved in secret projects aimed at replicating the advanced propulsion and energy systems observed in extraterrestrial craft. One of the most significant breakthroughs in these projects reportedly occurred in October 1954, when a source within the Naval Research Labs claimed that the U.S. mastered gravity control, a technology that allows for anti-gravity propulsion. This development marked the beginning of a new era in aerospace technology, with the potential to revolutionize transportation, energy production, and even our understanding of physics. However, these advancements have been kept hidden from the public, with their applications limited to covert military and intelligence operations. The implications of these technologies are vast. Anti-gravity propulsion could lead to the development of vehicles that defy conventional physics, enabling travel at speeds and in ways currently unimaginable. Additionally, the energy systems derived from extraterrestrial technology, such as zero-point energy, could provide limitless, clean energy, potentially eliminating the need for fossil fuels and drastically reducing environmental pollution. However, the introduction of these technologies would also disrupt the current global power structure, which is heavily dependent on the control and distribution of energy resources. This has led to a concerted effort by those in power to keep these technologies hidden, despite the profound positive impact they could have on society and the environment.
In the vacuum of confusion and ignorance, these maestros of deception can then manipulate the public or the Congress. So that gets into this whole other category. There's a whole category in there about staged alien abductions and covert programs staging events. Now, all the way back to Betty and Barney Hill. Everybody thinks that was way before we could have hoaxed anything like that. They are wrong. By the late 1950s and early 60s, covert programs had the ability to absolutely stage an alien abduction and did so. I think one of the problems is people say, well, why would they do that? It's because they want to create the psychological effect of fear of anything alien, because their long-term agenda is to have a sort of military unified world that's militaristic, poised against the ETs. And since the ETs obviously aren't hostile, or they would have shut us down by now, they have to create a false flag of operations. And people say, when is that going to happen? I said, well, it started happening in the 1950s. And that's where you get into a deep dive into another section, the government documents, where we have all these thousands of pages of government documents. And one of my favorite is a 1953 document signed by the director of the CIA at the time, Walter Bedell Smith. And CIA Director Smith in this states that the psychological warfare value of the UFO issue should be exploited. Fast forward to the mid-'80s, and Dr. Jacques Vallée got a document from the CIA that was talking about how they were staging abductions of peasants in Argentina and Brazil, their word, for its psychological warfare value, using our own assets, making them look alien. Now, this is a black and white document, a CIA document. Now, we don't have it. Jacques Vallée hasn't wanted to release it. I think he's been threatened. But it's been acknowledged to exist by 3 other people. So that sort of evidence is very important. We also have an Air Force intelligence officer on the record in the archive stating, in fact, that they have staged these abductions and have been doing so for decades and are still doing so.
The manipulation of public perception through psychological warfare and disinformation campaigns has been a central strategy in maintaining secrecy around UFOs and extraterrestrial encounters. Declassified documents from the CIA, including a 1953 memorandum by then-Director Walter Bedell Smith, explicitly state the psychological warfare value of the UFO issue. This strategy has involved staging fake alien abductions, creating false narratives, and promoting a culture of fear and skepticism to discredit genuine sightings and reports. A notable example of this is the Betty and Barney Hill abduction case, which many consider the first widely publicized alien abduction story. While the Hills experience was portrayed as a genuine extraterrestrial encounter, evidence has emerged suggesting that it may have been a carefully orchestrated psychological operation designed to instill fear of extraterrestrials in the public mind. In the 1980s, further CIA documents revealed operations in South America where peasants were abducted and subjected to experiments by covert U.S. assets, with the incidents staged to appear as alien encounters. These operations served dual purposes: to test psychological manipulation techniques and to reinforce the narrative of a potential extraterrestrial threat. This ongoing strategy has shaped the public's understanding of the UFO phenomenon, often diverting attention from legitimate cases and suppressing efforts toward disclosure. The suppression of advanced technologies derived from extraterrestrial sources has far-reaching implications for humanity. The potential benefits of technologies like zero-point energy, which could provide limitless, clean energy, are staggering. Such advancements could eliminate the need for fossil fuels, drastically reduce environmental pollution, and transform global economics by making energy freely available to all. The economic and environmental implications of such technology are profound. Currently, much of the world's economy is based on the extraction, processing, and sale of fossil fuels. If energy were to become freely available, it would not only eliminate energy costs, but also reduce the need for many industrial processes that are harmful to the environment. For instance, water desalination could become a practical solution for drought-stricken regions, and air purification could be implemented on a large scale to combat pollution. However, the introduction of these technologies would also disrupt the current global power structure, which is heavily dependent on the control and distribution of energy resources. This has led to a concerted effort by those in power to keep these technologies hidden, despite the profound positive impact they could have on society and the environment. The continued suppression of these technologies raises ethical questions about the responsibilities of those in control and the potential consequences for future generations. The Real X-Files challenge our conventional understanding of reality, inviting us to consider the possibility that we are not alone in the universe and that advanced civilizations have been visiting Earth for millennia. The evidence suggests that these encounters have been systematically concealed, not only to maintain control over powerful technologies, but also to manipulate public perception. As more whistleblowers come forward and more evidence is brought to light, the pressure for disclosure continues to grow. The implications of this knowledge are profound, offering both incredible opportunities and significant challenges. By fostering a culture of transparency, scientific inquiry, and open-mindedness, we can move towards a future where the true nature of our place in the cosmos is understood and embraced. This future is one where humanity can potentially harness the benefits of advanced technologies, engage in peaceful contact with extraterrestrial civilizations, and redefine its role on the cosmic stage. The road to this future is fraught with challenges, but the pursuit of truth and the commitment to progress offer a beacon of hope for what lies ahead.